Hey, Evaristopoli. This is my second Greek word that I know for today, which means thank you, danke schön, Aris. And now we are moving on. I see Santosh already getting ready, but till he sets up, I want to remind you that we also have a call going in the focus room, and it's René on exploring React 18 streaming capabilities with suspense for SSR. And here, get ready for a talk on one build tools for all you need. That's very interesting and challenging at the same time, and definitely curious. Welcome, Santosh, Yadav.
Thank you. Hello, hello. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So excited to be at CityJS Berlin, probably my first talk in Berlin. And so, and then, of course, you might be wondering how I prepared for this talk, so I decided to ask my friends. So I took some of the feedbacks from friends over the Twitter and LinkedIn. And of course, there were like 59 people who were really helpful, and they gave me some data to share. So I asked like few questions. First, which monorepo solutions people are using. And most of them replied, OK, they are using NPM workspace and Yarn workspace. Few of them do use NX, which is actually my talk about. And then, of course, there are Turbo Repo, PNPM, Lerna, and some others. I also asked them about what is stopping them from being productive. And of course, one of them is long CI runs. Local build and test runs. Of course, if you're a Java developer, you know that, or any backend technology. And then people fighting about how the app should look like where should your folder structure or how your folder structure look like. And that 30 people, they said, OK, this is our, one of the areas where we actually lose a lot of time. I also asked about like what is the average CI run they have. It looks pretty decent because only 40% people said, OK, it's between 30 to 1 hour, 30 minutes, not 30 hours. And then, of course, I had a few more questions about the tools they use with their application. For example, Cypress, Storybook, Jest. 37 people said yes, they use Jest. Vite, of course, I'm not sure why there was only one person who is using it. Probably more people might be using it under the hood, and they are not aware of if they are using Vite. But yeah, so these are the tools, different tools which are being used. And I also recently added this question if they are using any backend technology in their stack. And of course, there was .NET, Spring Boot, JavaScript. Of course, Twitter only talks about JavaScript, but once you go to enterprise, it's all .NET or Java. And there is someone who is using Golang as well. So you might be wondering how these questions are related to my talk, because if you see, people are using different build tools here. Like, of course, if you want to use Cypress, of course, you have to add Cypress to your solution. If you're using .NET, Spring Boot, you have to combine them and somehow put your code into a repository, right? So let's continue with the talk. And so my talk is about one build tool for all your needs. And before I start, let me give a small introduction about myself. So I'm Santosh. I'm based out of Hamburg. I work for a company called Celonis, and I'm a senior software engineer there. I'm a GD for Angular, also an NX champion. I'm also a GitHub star and Auth0 ambassador. I'm also co-founder of a community called This Is Learning. So in case you are interested in becoming part of a community, feel free to send me a message, and then we can actually have you as part of our community. We do multiple things. We have blogs, we have live streams, we have podcasts. And we also do a podcast called This is Tech Talks. We are soon starting season 3. So we already did season 1 and 2, which was pretty successful. And now, if you have something to share, I mean, any topic you want to talk about, just send me a DM. I'm available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and GitHub. I mean, GitHub just because I do some stuff there. I mean, I keep pushing my code. But yeah, Twitter or LinkedIn, reach out to me, and we can have you as a guest, and we can talk about anything you want to. I mean, it's not like very specific to technology. In case it's open-ended, whatever you want to talk about, we'll be happy to have you as a guest. So let's start, right? What is a build tool? So of course, everyone is using build tool in their projects, right? Either let it be any technology. If you have .NET, Java, or JavaScript. So you're using a build tool. What they do, so it's just a program to automate building your application, right? So it gives you output which you can take it, deploy it on any server, and that's what build tools do. But why we need build tools? What they do? That's the interesting question, right? So we say, OK, we need build tools because we need better developer experience. I mean, of course, if you see the build tools 10 years ago and now, there's a huge difference, right? I mean, it has become more developer friendly. That's what we say, OK, the build tools should be it should improve the developer experience. And it's actually also used to actually serve the bundle and optimized code to browser. I'm just talking about the front end here, but of course, it's same for backend. Once you compile your code, it gets translated to machine level code, and then it gets deployed. For type checking, of course, most of you are or might be using TypeScript and different type-safe languages, for example, .NET or Java, which is where also the build tool comes into the picture. One of the important thing which build tools are supposed to do is to reduce build time. But unfortunately, this is where actually not every build tool is doing a great job. I mean, they're doing a great job, but the build tools are also used to remove dead code. So in case you have some dead code which is not used, which should not be shipped on production, your build tool also does this. And of course, create lazy loaded chunks which can be loaded on runtime. This is again related to web. But let's agree to this. Build tools are fast, but not that fast. When it comes to enterprises, most of the build tools are slow. They're really slow. I mean, this is one of the area where most developers are really frustrated with. They're losing a lot of time. What happens? Because, of course, your code increases, right? In enterprises, we have someone known as product owners who has a lot of money, and they tell you, OK, add this feature. Why to add this feature? No one knows. When they need that feature, they need it now. So your code keeps piling up, right? And of course, once you add more code, what happens? Your build time increases. So you wait longer and longer. So this is how it looks like. So you raise a PR, you wait for it, and then you just keep waiting for it, and then you decide to have a fight with your colleague. I mean, not in reality, but yeah, you just decide to have actually, let's go for a coffee or let's go for a break. That's what you decide. So enterprises are losing a lot of money. So actually, if you see, developer time is money. CI time, of course, is money. Your enterprises are paying a lot of money to GitHub Actions or whatever CI provider you're using. And if you see developer time plus CI time, of course, you're losing a lot of money. So let's see what in case my build tool could do few things. If my build tool is fast, irrespective of technology, it doesn't matter what I use. I mean, whether I'm using .NET, Java, or I'm using frontend as Next or Angular or React, doesn't matter. It supports monorepo, so I can have multiple projects inside same repository. I can share my code. It's extensible, so I can actually bring in my own technology in case I have my own homegrown framework, and I want to actually bring it inside my monorepo to have the same developer experience for everyone. My developer tool should be actually able to do it. It allows you to actually not waste your time and have a common folder structure or application structure. And it's smart. But in case it's smart when it comes to what needs to be built, because as of today, most of the build tools which you use, they build everything again and again. You change one line of code, you change a text, and you build everything. That's what we are doing. It supports now module federation and micro frontend, they are very buzzwords, but what in case they also support it? What if it supports different build tools inside the build tool? What in case I can just move to RSpec tomorrow or Vite from Webpack? My build tool should be able to do this. And most important thing, it should unlock me from moving forward. It means if you see the frameworks, right, they're improving. They are bringing new features. And what in case your build tool allows you to actually move to new version for, let's say, React 17 to 18 with click of a button, or from Angular 15 to 17 with click of a button, or any technology. I mean, let's talk about .NET or Java. My build tool, if allows me to move to a next version with just click of a button, that would be great, right? That's a build tool I would like to have actually in my project, because it will save me a lot of time. So this is the app structure I'm talking about. You should be able to fine-grain your application into different application code, libraries, shared libraries, your design system. It should be very well structured, so you can actually, your team can work on individual features, not in a common code base where everyone is making changes, because it becomes very hard. Because if you have a common code base where everyone is making changes, you have one thing, conflict. Not within the team, but of course, once you raise a PR, there is a conflict, and you have to resolve the conflict. Again, waste of time. But if you see, there is one more thing. I mean, again, if you move to this code base, there is again one problem, right? What needs to be built? Let's say someone works on feature 1 and there is no change for other code bases or other part of the code. As of today, we build everything. As I said, even a single line of text change will re-trigger the entire application to be built or entire libraries to be built. What in case my build tool does this? So it identifies what has been changed. It identifies, OK, these are the areas. So the green symbols, they are the things which is changed, which needs to be rebuilt again, and only rebuilds that part of the code. So it means my build tool is smart enough to identify what has changed and what needs to be rebuilt. And as I said, the build tool which supports different build tools within the tool. So we have V, TS build, Webpack, RSpack, TS, JS, Node.js, everything. And you can bring your own tool. So if you want to build your own tool and bring it inside the build tool, yes, you can do that. So let me introduce also backend technologies, .NET, Spring Boot. But what about CI? Most of developers are actually not waiting on their local machine, but they are waiting for CI build to complete. That's what we do, right? I mean, we raise a PR, and then we just wait and have coffee, and yeah, have more coffees. So for CI, this tool actually can do distributed task execution. What do you mean by distributed task execution? What is task? So if you do a PR, I mean, there are multiple checks which happens on a CI pipeline. Linting, build, probably end-to-end test, probably unit test. So they are tasks. So this tool can actually distribute your task onto different agents. So your builds or your tasks are running faster. It also supports distributed caching. What do you mean by distributed caching? One thing which developers don't do often is sharing what they have built. What I mean by this. So everyone builds the project or library which they are working on their local machine. But do we share it with other developers? No, we don't. It's not like we don't want to. There is no tool which can actually enable us to do that, right? I mean, of course, you can have remote servers where you can push your builds, but of course, building this by your own is complicated and time-consuming. And of course, there is something known as latency when it comes to remote servers. But this tool actually can distribute your builds to entire organization. So every developer who is using this tool can actually use the last build which you have done or last test which you have run. So saving them a lot of time. Because, of course, sharing is caring. So this is how you can do it. So let's say if you have build your app code or your one feature lab, shared lab, you can actually distribute across your entire organization. All the developers can use the last build and save their time. So let's say if your app is not touched and a new developer joins your team, it was already built and available in the remote server. It's just like for him, or for the developer, it's like within a second, the build will be completed, and the developer is unblocked. And then the developer can start working on it. So introducing NX DevTools, this is the tool which enables you to do all this. Sounds interesting, right? So let's see how we can do that. So NX DevTool allows you to have actually monorepos, or you can call it as a workspace. So within a workspace, you can put any project which you like. So they have two modes. There is one mode which is called package-based, which was asked from the community for a longer period of time. And there is another called integrated monorepos because they support few technologies out of the box. For example, they support Angular, React, and now with recent release, they launched support for Vue. So in case, yeah, and they also have support for Next. They have support for Next as well, I think, Next.js. And they have support for Astro and many technologies. But for most use cases, in case you're just building a JavaScript-based project, I mean, package-based monorepo is what you want to look at. Or if you want to use .NET or Spring Boot within your workspace, I think this package-based monorepo is the best suited for you. But they also have plugins. I'll talk about it later, but let's see. Let's see a small demo. Like everyone loves to see code, so here it is. So this is a small workspace which I have created, and this workspace right now has Angular project. So if you see, I have apps folder where my apps are, and then you have libs folder where you can actually split my shared or common code into libs folder. But do I need to actually do it by hand? The answer is no, because NX with the CLI offers you everything which you need to create a new app or new library. So you don't have to waste your time actually finding out how to do this. So I'm a fan of CLI, but for demos, I don't use CLI. Use NX console, which is very user-friendly with a great user experience as well. You have all the commands available here. So you don't have to learn another new CLI, right? Because it's time-consuming. Why should you learn another CLI? So let me show you what you can do. So as I said, my build tool should be able to actually have multiple projects, irrespective of technologies, right? So here you can, there is something known as add dependency. So once I click on it, you can see there are multiple options which I'm getting. So in case, let's say, I have an Angular project as a front-end or React project, what I need is I want my .NET developers to have the same common experience, and then I want them to also access the code of whatever Angular and React backend is. So I can go there and say, hey, do you have something for .NET? And yes, they do have a plugin for NX, .NET. So you can actually add a .NET project to the same repository. But you can do it for Spring Boot. You can do it for Golang. You can do it for Rust. So everything is available, right? So same, but the question is again, when it comes to enterprises, the build tools are slow. Will that solve this issue? It will increase the complexity, right? Because now you have more code. Earlier, you just had front-end code. Now you have your back-end code. So how does the build work? How it will reduce my build time? So let me show you something very interesting here. So let's say I have this different libraries, right? And let me just build one of them. So I'll say, OK, I'm using CLI, but it's not that complicated. So I can say NX run. And my library name, so I can say home. And I can say, OK, build this project in production. OK, so it says, OK, some build is not defined in schema. OK, demos. Let me see. I can remove this and try to build it again. Oh my God. Why? OK, because it has some dependencies. So I'll just need to remove this property from here. And perfect. Looks fine to me. Yeah. So let me build. So again, design system. So this is the problem. Like I just updated my workspace 2 days back. Great. So it's working, right? So you see, OK, the build is done, right? Let me rerun it again. And build is done. So you can see it. What it did. It actually cached my previous build, and then it saw that, OK, there is no changes to this project. And if I build it again, it will just replay the same cache which it had. But it is also smart. In case I make a change into one project, for example, let's say I make a change into my library. And let's go to, this is HTML, so it's easy to recognize what I am doing here. So I am just adding a div. I'm not going to center it because I don't know how to do it. So again, so it says, OK, there's one interesting thing which happened here. Of course, it ran the build. But can you see this? It says NX read the output from the cache instead of running the command for 2 out of 3 tasks. So it has dependency on 2 other projects. But it said, OK, there is no change into those 2 projects. So I will just replay them from the cache. So let's say if you have a library which has 10 different dependencies, and you just change that library, 9 projects are already built for you. You don't have to build it again. So it allows you to actually split your code into smaller modules. And you can like unblock your developers. They can work on different features at the same time, and they don't like uh, s- spend the time building the same code again and again. And this is something also available on the remote cache in case you are using the NX Cloud, which I'll talk about in a few seconds. But this is not the only thing which it can do. One of the biggest problem when you do development is to identify circular dependencies. How many of you have seen or actually came across a circular dependency in your project? Anyone? No? Few people. OK. But what in case my build tool can identify my circular dependencies before I build the project? What I mean is, what in case it stops you? It tells you, OK, there is a circular dependency, don't go ahead. So NX can do it for you as well. But there's one more thing. As a senior developer, you can also define which project should be used in which project. This is one of the biggest problem, right? I mean, let's say if you don't look at your code base for a month, you figure out that there are some dependencies which you never wanted it to be. So suddenly you have data access being accessed inside your UI, which you never wanted to be. So all these issues are very common in big enterprises, and this is where NX can help you by one small feature, but very powerful feature. So NX has something called as project.json. This is where it defines all the tasks. Build, lint, end-to-end. This is where it defines all the tasks. So you can see there is a build, there is a test, there is a lint. So everything is available here. And NX has one very powerful lint rule, which is known as enforce module boundaries. By using this linting rule, you can actually enforce the boundaries between your projects. So you can say, OK, this live home, or let's say, yeah, home library should not be used inside my app directly. You can define all these dependencies here. So you can say, OK, hey, my app Hello World should use only home library. In case I try to use any other library, just throw an error. And we can actually see that in action because I already have imported something which is not home. And let's do that. So I can say NX run my app, which is Hello World. And I can say lint. And once you run this, you see an error. It says, hey, a project which is tagged with Hello World can only depend on home, but you're trying to use something else. So what I'm trying to use it here is, I'm trying to use design system inside my project. So you can stop it before it happens. And VS Code can identify your lint rules inside your IDE. So in case you're writing a code, you actually just know it when the time you write this code, that this should not happen. And as a senior developer, you can enforce this in your entire monorepo or in entire project, stopping people from actually making these mistakes. Yeah. So of course, so you have your cache, you have different tasks. But what else? What more? What in case you can add like in case you have an existing project and you want to use NX? It's not a big deal. You can just run a single command called nx at latest in case you have NX installed. Otherwise, just do npx nx at latest init, and it will add NX dependencies to your project. It doesn't matter which technology or which framework you are using. It has first-class support for Angular, React, Vue, and it has support for Solid and I think Quick as well. But in case you want same feature or same performance which you are actually noticing on your local to be available on your cloud, so you can use NX Cloud. Just run a single command, yarn NX connect, and it will connect to NX Cloud, which is free in case you have an open source project, so you don't have to pay anything. You can save a lot of time by actually sharing your cache, sharing your builds, distributing your task, and yeah, so you can do it on NX Cloud as well. So let me show you two things which you should keep in your mind when you are using NX. One thing is your focus should be that the code which is built is only the affected code. It's not like if you keep everything inside a single application and you expect NX Cloud to perform or NX to perform, it will never happen, right? Because you have a single code base and everything will be rebuilt again and again. And to achieve this, you have to follow the second point, which is the code which is built together stays together. So this is something which will not happen on day one. In case you are adopting NX, it will happen over the period of time. And you will identify, like, once you start splitting your code into smaller chunks, smaller libraries, you will figure out, OK, what code needs to go together. So these are two things which you should keep in your mind. And of course, to show a demo, I actually ran my sample application on NX Cloud. And you can see in 38 runs, it's actually able to save me 7 minutes or close to 7 minutes of time running different tasks. So my build time, which was supposed to be close to 6 minutes, actually is 3 minutes because of most of the things are already cached. Same for lint and same for test. So this is how, I mean, just this is a small project, right? This is not a very big project. But still, I'm able to save 7 minutes of my CI build time. And I'll show you one more thing. I mean, of course, you can use distributed task execution. How does that look like? So you can see, actually, this is the NX Cloud homepage. NX.app is the page, actually, where you can see your entire analysis. And you will be able to see how much time it took and on how many agents it actually ran your task. So here, I'm using 3 agents. And it took me, like, my last run was 11 seconds. And it says, OK, this one, right? So you can see my lint took how many? 10 seconds for 7 projects. Nothing, right? I mean, you actually, in big projects, you can just run lint for 30 minutes probably. But here, you will be able to save a lot of time by actually having everything distributed as well as cached, right? So it actually takes into consideration whatever is cached is not built together, or sorry, not built again, or not linted again. So this is NX Cloud. This is how it looks like. And of course, I had only 20 minutes to show, so I had to cut down most of the slides. And I have a course. I mean, it's an Angular course in case someone in your team wants to learn Angular. This is free course available on Free Code Camp. And just recently, it reached 1 million views, like very big thanks to the community for like all the love and support. And in case you want to learn more about NX, I have my friend has a book, which is free book available. In case you want to learn about NX more, you can just go ahead and download that book. And shout out to my GitHub sponsors, because that's why I'm here. So Commenta Rocks, AppWrite, and few other